The chandelier stopped swaying. Conversation died mid-laugh as 500 elite guests turned toward the center of the ballroom, where a barefoot woman stood frozen on cold marble, clutching a worn art portfolio like armor. Amara Lewis hadn't been invited to speak, yet her name echoed through the room, called from a microphone she never touched. Across the glittering space, Min Jun Kang, the untouchable billionaire CEO, stepped away from the woman his family had chosen to secure his empire. He ignored the cameras, ignored his father's rising fury. His eyes locked onto Amara. "Not her," Min Jun said, his voice unsteady. "I love the woman who rejected me for 6 months straight." A collective gasp swept the hall. Amara's stomach dropped. This was the nightmare she had warned him about. The world where his power swallowed her whole. Where her name turned into a headline instead of a life. Moments earlier, he had introduced her as the coffee girl. Now he was setting fire to everything for her. Amara turned to run, but her breath caught when Min Jun did the unthinkable. He knelt. Right there. In a suit worth more than her rent. "I learned too late," he said, voice breaking. "That love cannot be bought." Amara's hands trembled. Because the question was no longer whether he loved her. It was whether loving him would destroy her. Subscribe to Love and Loyalties before the truth changes everything. Min Jun started showing up every morning at 7:15. Same table by the window. Same black coffee he never touched until it cooled. Same quiet way of watching the room like he owned it. Even when he clearly didn't own this place. Amara noticed him the first week. Everyone did. Men like him didn't blend into cracked tile floors and flickering menu boards. His suit alone cost more than the cafe's monthly rent. But what unsettled her wasn't the money. It was the patience. He didn't rush her, didn't flirt, didn't demand attention. He just waited. The first time he left an excessive tip, Amara slid it back across the counter without a word. He blinked. Slowly smiled, pushed it back. She pushed it back again. "You forgot your change," she said evenly, loud enough for the line behind him to hear. The cafe went quiet. Min Jun studied her like she'd spoken a language no one else knew. Then he nodded once, took the money, and left. The next day, he did it again, and the next. By the 4th morning, the staff had opinions. By the 6th, customers lingered just to watch. A billionaire CEO being quietly rejected by a barista wasn't something people saw every day. "Why do you keep doing that?" he asked one morning, finally breaking the silence as she wiped the counter. "Because it's not mine." Amara replied. "It's a tip. It's pressure." That made him pause. Min Jun wasn't used to resistance. In boardrooms, people anticipated his needs before he spoke. In social circles, generosity opened doors effortlessly. Here, it hit a wall. He started staying longer. Asking questions that had nothing to do with money. What she painted. Where she learned. Why her hands were always stained with charcoal. She answered carefully. Never gave more than necessary. He noticed everything anyway. The worn soles of her shoes. The way she stretched her shoulders between rushes. The second apron folded in her bag for her shift at the community art center. One afternoon, after watching her rub her wrist like it hurt, he said, "You shouldn't be working this much." She laughed softly. "You shouldn't be telling strangers how to live." "I could help," he said like it was obvious. "School. Transportation. You wouldn't have to." "No." The word landed clean and final. Min Jun frowned. "You didn't even let me finish." "I didn't need to." He leaned forward. "Why does generosity offend you so much?" Amara met his gaze. This close, she could see it. The confusion, not arrogance. Loneliness tucked behind control. "My father used to send gifts," she said. "Big ones, birthdays, holidays, boxes instead of apologies. He never came himself." Silence stretched. "Money doesn't scare me," she continued. "What scares me is what people think it buys them." Min Jun sat back, something shifting behind his eyes. For the first time, he didn't argue. Days passed. Conversations sharpened. Attraction threaded through the tension like a wire pulled too tight. He teased her about her stubbornness. She called him predictable. Sometimes he smiled like she'd surprised him. Sometimes he looked almost hurt. He invited her to places she refused. Restaurants she'd never feel comfortable in. Events she didn't want her name attached to. Each no was calm. Unyielding. In his world, no was temporary. In hers, it was survival. One evening, Amara finished a double shift and stepped outside into the cooling air. Min-jun stood by the curb, jacket draped over his arm. "You followed me?" she asked. "I waited," he corrected. "There's a difference." He gestured to her car. Old, coughing, barely holding together. "I can get you a new one," he said quietly. Amara's jaw tightened. "You really don't listen." "I do," he said. "I just don't understand why accepting help feels like surrender to you." "Because it always comes with a price." "Not from me." "You don't know that," she said. "And neither do I." They stood there, city noise filling the space between them. For once, he didn't reach for solutions. Didn't offer a driver or a check or a fix. "I don't want to own you," he said finally. "I just want to know you." She looked at him then, really looked. Not the suit, not the name. The man standing awkwardly on a cracked sidewalk, unsure of his footing. "And if you can't?" she asked. "Then I'll walk away." The words surprised both of them. Min-jun took a breath, as if stripping something off. "One dinner," he said. "Cheap place. No money. No favors. No promises." Amara's heart thudded painfully. "And if I still think you're just your money?" she asked. "Then I won't come back." He stepped away before she could answer. Amara watched him disappear into the night, fear and curiosity twisting together in her chest. For the first time, the power wasn't in what he offered, it was in whether she'd let him stay. Amara agreed to dinner on one condition: they walked. No reservations. No valet. No quiet rooms with white tablecloths that made her feel like she didn't belong. Min-jun didn't argue. He showed up in dark jeans and a plain jacket. His watch conspicuously absent. It unsettled her more than if he'd worn the suit. They ate street noodles standing under a flickering sign. Grace, stained paper bowls, plastic forks. Min-jun spilled broth on his sleeve and laughed at himself, genuinely embarrassed. Amara caught herself smiling before she could stop it. That was how it started. Not fireworks. Not surrender. Small moments where his world loosened its grip. The gallery invitation came a week later, not flashy. Local artists. Community donors. Amara hesitated until he told her the truth, that he didn't own the building, didn't sponsor the event, and wouldn't even be recognized there. She went. Inside, the air was soft with music and wine. Amara's breath caught at the clean, white walls. The way people stood quietly, in front of paintings like they were listening. She felt Min-jun beside her, not in front, not guiding. Just present. He didn't introduce her as anything, she noticed. As the evening stretched, she became aware of the way people watched him anyway. How bodies subtly shifted when he spoke. Power followed him even when he tried to leave it behind. "You don't like this part," she murmured as someone shook his hand for too long. "I hate it," he admitted. "Everyone sees the name before they see me." "And who are you without it?" she asked. He looked at her, something unguarded slipping through. "I don't know." No one's ever asked. That answer stayed with her. He didn't test her with money, he tested her with proximity, sitting too close. Letting silence stretch. Asking questions he didn't know the answers to. What scared her? What made her feel small? What she'd never say out loud? She didn't answer all of them. But she answered more than she meant to. In his car, modest, rented, she noticed how he waited before touching her hand, asked with his eyes. She pulled away, heart racing, and he respected it. Didn't chase. Didn't punish her with distance either. It was confusing. Days later, she found herself in his office building, dropping off sketches he'd asked to see, not for investment, he'd promised, just curiosity. The elevator was silent, smooth, nothing like the cafe's clatter. She felt the weight of the place immediately. Glass. Steel. People who moved fast and didn't look twice. Min Jun wasn't there yet. She wandered, eyes drawn to the walls lined with awards and headlines. His face everywhere. His name carved into success. A woman in heels passed her, then paused. Looked back. "You're the girl from the cafe." Amara stiffened. "I'm an artist." The woman smiled thinly. "Of course." That unease settled deep. When Min Jun arrived, breathless and apologetic, she almost left. Instead, she followed him into a quiet conference room overlooking the city. He talked about growing up in a house with more staff than family. Birthdays planned by assistants. Dinners eaten alone because meetings ran late. "My father taught me control was love," he said. If he provided, that was enough. "And your mother?" Amara asked softly. He looked away. She posed for photos. The honesty in his voice cracked something open. She reached for his hand without thinking. He froze, then held on like it mattered. For a moment, she believed him. Then voices filtered through the glass walls. Low, serious, male. "The marriage alliance stabilizes the investors." Amara's body went still. "Chairman Kang insists it's time." Her name drifted in next, casual and sharp like a blade. "The barista complicates optics." Her heart slammed. Min Jun followed her gaze, confusion flickering. "What is it?" She pulled her hand away slowly, eyes locked on the silhouettes beyond the glass. Lauder. Negotiation. Her life reduced to strategy. She stood, breath shallow. "What alliance?" she asked. Min Jun's face drained of color. "Amara." She stepped toward the door, drawn by something darker than curiosity. The voices grew clearer. "Temporary distraction," one man said. "She'll fade once the wedding is announced." Another replied. Amara's chest burned. She opened the door. The room fell silent as half a dozen executives turned. Surprise, calculation, dismissal. Chairman Kang sat at the head of the table. His eyes landed on her, assessing, cold. "So," he said calmly, "you're the girl." Amara didn't look at Min Jun. She couldn't. Because in that moment, standing barefoot on polished floors that would never be hers, she understood the truth. She hadn't entered Min Jun's world. She had walked straight into a negotiation she never agreed to be part of. And somewhere behind her, Min Jun called her name. Too late to stop what was breaking. The news broke at 6:40, 2 in the morning. Amara learned about it from her phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. Notifications stacked so fast the screen froze. Mentions. Tags. Screenshots. Headlines wrapped in polite language that still cut deep. Kangol obr ijisk ujunkati may teach mystr mom and anvl veted. There she was. A grainy photo from outside the cafe. Her face half turned. Hair pulled back. Apron visible. Another from the gallery. Cropped. Circled. Zoomed until privacy felt like a joke. Comment sections bloomed beneath them. Cruel and hungry. Who is she? Is she pregnant? Another gold digger. Amara's hands shook as she locked the phone. Her stomach twisted with a familiar, old panic. The kind that told her to disappear. By noon, reporters were outside Brewhaven. By 1, her manager asked if she wanted to go home. By 2, her name was trending next to his. Min Jun tried to call. Then text. Then voice messages that piled up unanswered. She didn't want explanations. She wanted her life back. She went to his office, because anger needed somewhere to land. The building swallowed her whole. Glass and silence and men in suits, who stared like she was a rumor come to life. When the elevator doors opened, Min Jun was already there, eyes red, tie undone, relief flashing when he saw her. "You should have told me," she said before he could speak. "I was going to." "When?" Her voice stayed level, which scared him more than shouting. "After the wedding announcement. After my face hit every blog." He reached for her. She stepped back. "I chose you," he said urgently. "I told them no. I told my father. And you told the world." She cut in. "Without asking me." His jaw tightened. "I had to make it clear. No," she said. "You wanted to be brave." The words landed heavy. "This wasn't a love story," she continued. "This was a rebellion. And you used me as proof you could finally stand up to him." "That's not true." he said, voice cracking. I love you. You love what I represent. Amara replied. Freedom defiance. Something you can't buy. Silence filled the space between them. She told him about the messages. The threats. The way strangers felt entitled to decide who she was. She told him how small it made her feel. How exposed. I warned you, she said quietly. I told you your world would swallow me. I thought I could protect you. That's the problem. She whispered. I never asked to be protected. Min Jun looked shattered. For the first time, she saw him without strategy, without control, just a man who thought choosing love loudly would fix everything. It was too loud, she said. And too late. She turned away before he could say more. I won't be someone's rebellion, Amara said, voice steady even as her chest burned. I won't be the cost of your freedom. He followed her to the elevator. Don't go. She pressed the button. The doors slid open. Learn the difference between choosing someone, she said, and dragging them into your war. The doors closed. For 2 weeks, Min Jun disappeared. No cafe visits. No messages. No quiet waiting on sidewalks. His name still dominated headlines, but he became a ghost to her. Amara changed her routine. Took different streets. Turned her phone off at night. Painted until her hands ached. Peace came in fragments. Fragile, hard-won. And somewhere in the city, Min Jun Kang sat alone in a penthouse full of silence, finally understanding that love didn't disappear because he stopped trying. It disappeared because he tried to own it. The Gala was everything Amara hated in one room. Crystal chandeliers. Soft violins. Dresses that cost more than her yearly rent. She stood near her displayed paintings, hands clasped behind her back, reminding herself she was here for her work. Not the man whose name echoed through every whispered conversation. She hadn't known Min Jun would be here. Not until she saw him across the room. He stood beside the woman everyone said was perfect for him. Elegant, poised, dressed in silver that caught the light like armor. Park Yuna. The approved choice. The future his father had designed. Min Jun looked untouched by it all. Polished. Controlled. Untouchable again. Amra's chest tightened. So this was how it ended. She turned back to her paintings, heart hardening as she packed her portfolio. She told herself she hadn't expected more. Told herself she was foolish to think she mattered beyond the moment he needed to prove something. Applause rippled through the room. Min Jun was being called to the stage. Amara didn't look up until she heard her name. Before I begin, Min Jun said, voice steady but wrong. Too tight, too careful. I need to correct something. The room quieted. I just committed a cowardly act, he continued. I reduced someone important to me into something small so I could feel safe. A murmur moved through the crowd. Amara froze. I introduced her as the coffee girl, Min Jun said. And in doing so, I became exactly what I claimed I was trying not to be. The woman beside him stiffened. His father's face hardened. Min Jun exhaled, then let the breath shake. I was raised to believe power was protection, he said. That if you controlled the narrative, you controlled the damage. I was wrong. He stepped down from the stage. Every eye followed as he crossed the marble floor toward Amara. Her pulse thundered. She wanted to run. Wanted to vanish. Instead, she stood there as Min Jun stopped in front of her, the room holding its breath. I don't deserve forgiveness, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. But I refuse to keep pretending. Then, slowly, deliberately, he knelt. Gasps erupted. Min Jun Kang, the billionaire CEO, bent his knee on polished marble in front of a woman the world had dismissed. I tried to buy love, he said, voice breaking. Then I tried to announce it. Then I tried to control it. And each time, I lost you. Amara's eyes burned. I chose pride over listening, he continued. I chose volume over consent. I turned you into collateral in a war you never agreed to fight. Silence crushed the room. I am not asking you to choose me, Min Jun said. I am choosing truth. Right now. In front of everyone. He looked up at her, eyes stripped bare. I love you, Not because you defy me, not because you humble me, not because you represent freedom. I love you because you see me when I have nothing to offer." His voice cracked completely. "And if walking away from me is how you protect yourself," he whispered, "I will accept it." The room waited. Amara felt every gaze like weight on her skin. The cameras, the whispers, the history pressing in. This was the moment she had feared, not because he was powerful, but because he was vulnerable. She stepped forward, Min Jun's breath caught. "You don't get to kneel for me," Amara said softly. "You kneel for yourself." She reached down, not to pull him up, but to place her palm over his heart. "This," she said, "is where you were supposed to stand all along." Tears streaked down his face. Amara turned to the crowd. "I am not a rebellion," she said, voice steady. "I am not a statement, and I will never be someone's proof of courage." She looked back at Min Jun. "But I also won't run from a man who finally understands what it costs to love honestly." She stepped back. Min Jun rose unsure, trembling. "I'm scared," Amara admitted. "Your world still terrifies me." "I know," he said, "but I'm more scared of never trying." She finished. She took his hand. Not for the cameras. Not for the room. For herself. The applause came late. Soft. Uncertain. Amara didn't stay to hear it. She walked out with Min Jun beside her, leaving behind chandeliers, expectations, and a version of love built on performance. Outside, the city hummed ordinary, alive, real. Min Jun stopped on the curb, breath hitching as the weight of the night finally crashed into him. He laughed once, broken and breathless. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. Amara squeezed his hand. "Good," she said. "Neither do I." And for the first time, the risk didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a choice. A year later, the mornings were quiet. No cameras. No waiting crowds. Just the low hum of the city waking up, and the smell of coffee drifting through a small kitchen that didn't belong to a magazine spread or a penthouse tour. Amara stood barefoot by the counter, stirring honey into her mug, while Min Jun leaned against the doorway, watching like it was still something he was learning how to do. Stay. They argued sometimes. About money, mostly. About his instinct to fix and her instinct to refuse. About how he still reached for solutions when she only wanted space. The difference now was that neither of them ran. When Amara enrolled in art school, she did it herself. Scholarships, grants, long nights. Min Jun never made a call, never pulled a string. The only thing he did was show up to her exhibitions and stand quietly in the back, clapping last. When he funded a community arts program months later, her name wasn't on the paperwork. That mattered more to her than any grand declaration ever could. They kept their rituals small. Cheap noodle dates. Shared playlists. Coffee that grew cold because they talked too long. Sometimes they sat on the curb outside her place when rain soaked the street, shoulders touching, saying nothing at all. The world still knew his name, but it no longer owned her. Once, a reporter asked how he'd changed. Min Jun only said, "I learned that loyalty isn't loud." Amara heard about it later and smiled, shaking her head. He still hated interviews. Still avoided stages. Still flinched at flashbulbs. At night, when she fell asleep with her head on his chest, he listened to her breathing like proof he hadn't imagined any of it. Love didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like safety earned the hard way, like trust rebuilt through showing up when it would have been easier to disappear, like choosing each other every day without witnesses. No kneeling, no speeches, just consistency. And when Amara finally answered the he people used to ask her why she stayed, she said the truth, because he stopped trying to own love, she said, and started practicing it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Love and Loyalties and comment which couple you want next.